Like anyone, I've made my share of mistakes this year, and I hope that you watching this can learn from some of them and hopefully not make those same mistakes in 2022. Of course, I'm not just going to talk about the mistakes, but I'm going to turn them into lessons that I hope you can get value out of. I wanted to share these as the last video that I have for you this year because I'll be heading back to KL for a holiday, but it's also a last video that I'll be making possibly for a while, but more on that later. Hey guys, it's Sunmin and welcome back to Your Money Game, the show where we'll save, invest and feel better about money. The first mistake is getting carried away about the information that I consume. This year has been a massive one when it comes to me and learning about investing because I had the opportunity to dig deeper into macro investing, learning about the crypto space, so it was a really exciting year for me. And of course, along with that, I was consuming a whole lot of information from such a wide variety of sources as well. So while I still think it's valuable to get information from different sources, and it's because you can get a more balanced view, the problem is, I think, again, there's just way too much information. And I'll give you an example. There was a channel that I used to follow called Stanberry's Research, and for them, what I found was the guests that they put on there were a little bit too sensational for me. Besides possibly creating confusion, too much information can also lead you to that impulse to take action. And again, because you're always watching videos, reading articles, or whatever it is about what's going to happen, where the trend is going, sometimes your finger gets really itchy and you just want to make a decision on the spot. Overall, I'm proud to say that I managed to hold back most of that impulse, but definitely one or two slipped through, which resulted in some less than great trades over the year. The next lesson is that the more active investing decisions that you make does not mean that it will always pay off. Earlier in the year, I did a mid-year portfolio review, and even during that point, I mentioned that I was up about 8%, but the market at the point was up about 15%. I still have a few decisions that came from 2020 that weren't performing. ARK, unfortunately, was one of the poor performers, which is currently down year to date about 25%, I think. And the worst is actually KWEB, which is the Chinese tech ETF, which is currently down about 50+%. While the year isn't done yet, I'm pretty sure that I will not be able to match the performance of what the S&P 500 has done, or maybe even another passive index fund such as VT, which is the Total World Index Fund. The point that I'm making isn't that those decisions that I've made earlier were necessarily wrong decisions. It's just a good reminder that if you thought that to be a good investor, you needed to make all these active decisions, you don't. You can always simplify things, buy the S&P 500 or a Total World Stock Market Index like VT, and a simple approach like that could actually do much better for you. The next point is kind of getting caught up with this whole idea that markets must go up or it must go down, but we forget that it can always just go sideways. Depending on your investing or trading style, it's easy to kind of build a narrative to talk about how the price at this level, it's a great price to either currently go long or maybe go short. However, it's a humbling reminder that even with your best analysis or intentions or strategies, sometimes the price can literally just go nowhere. Depending on your style, there could be nothing wrong with this. But speaking honestly, for me, in some of the decisions that I've made, it's frustrating to sit and just watch the price kind of do nothing. As a result of that, there are these emotions that begin to bubble up and you begin to question your decision and wonder if there's a better thing to do with that cash that you invested. Should you pull it out? Should you reinvest it? And all those type of thoughts. This is exactly how I feel about my SG REITs investments, which I made back in February 2020. And over the entire span of time, about 1 3/4 of a year, it's up about 4%. The only consolation is that it's a small portion of the portfolio, it's a bit of a diversifier because I'm mostly invested in the US, and it's a defensive aspect of it as well. And that's why I'm choosing to kind of keep it there, don't touch it despite all the temptation I have to pull it out. The next lesson is that don't fight politics. Back to the KWEB example, it was mind-blowing for me to watch how the price of it went from 104 in February earlier this year, drop all the way to where it is now, which is 40+. For me, I was fortunate that when I initially created the position last year, it was actually early days, so I still had quite a lot of profit, even as the market began to fall. So even as I watched it go from 100 plus to 60 plus, I was telling myself, how much worse can it get? Because the price fall was so steep, I rationalized to myself that, hey, why don't I just add a little bit more into the position and try and ride this wave out? Lo and behold, even more news came out about regulation, and at that point in time, it was the early childhood education space that was really cracked down and turned almost into a non-profit. Politics continued to play a part of it, and I think that was really just too adventurous a move, even though I intend to hold this for the long term. The final couple of lessons come from some realizations I've had about this year for myself when it comes to personal growth. The first is to find comfort in a bigger picture. I think the theme for this couple of years has been the word uncertainty in all large caps. And I'm guessing it's the same for you as well. Worrying about friends and family, wondering if I could return back to KL, wondering if the business of the advertising agency that I work in would be okay. It's so normal for us, and it's human nature, right? To get bogged down with these type of day-to-day worries that we forget to take a step back every now and then. I reminded myself that I still had a financial plan that I was sticking to. Overall, I've managed to maintain a relatively healthy lifestyle. I'm grateful that I have great relationships that are still going strong despite the distance that has been created because of COVID. It wasn't about finding perfection, but really just taking a step back, looking at the bigger picture, and reminding myself to be grateful for all these things that I still have. And I do believe you can do the same thing if you're watching a video like this. The final tip that I have for you is to keep working on adding value, but at the same time, you should step back and always be honest with yourself. Now, I'm guessing you can relate to this. You're tired, you're frustrated, you're feeling down, but yet you still need to show up and work. During these type of moments, just showing up and trying to do the work feels as if like you're trying to move a mountain and you don't want to do it, or maybe you just want to burn the whole mountain down. But hopefully you're a rational person that didn't burn it down, but instead found some other way to cope. In the past couple of years, there were plenty of these type of moments, and I just kept having to go back to the fundamentals of what I learned in the earlier days of my career and reminding myself like just show up, keep adding value, show up, keep adding value. And there were a couple of payoffs here, and the first one is that once things began to normalize or settle down a bit more, the efforts that I put in, that was appreciated by my boss and as well as by my peers. But more importantly, for me, I'm able to look myself in the mirror today and look back and say that, hey, I did the right thing by my values. And this brings me to my final point, which is about being honest with yourself, and it's related to this channel. The long story short is that while I have loved creating weekly videos for this channel for about 2 years now in a row, I finally realized that I need to take a step back and rethink how I'm approaching things. And it's because I'm not seeing the growth or progress as much as I'd like. For any one of you out there who's working on a side hustle, you'll never really know if something is working out until you commit a certain amount of time and effort. And even then, there will be a point where you'll need to take a step back and ask yourself, is what you're doing enough for you as a person? And is it enough to sustain you moving forward? For me, it's a great time to be able to do that because it's also incidentally my time to finally go back to KL to visit friends and family. So for this channel, I don't yet know where the future lies, but for now, I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you guys got value out of these tips that I shared. Have a very Merry Christmas and a great start to 2022. So you take care, and as always, keep playing your own game.